Welcome to Easily Entertained. My name is Bryson Olson, and here we talk about all the good things of entertainment. First off, Happy New Year! Woo! 2025! About to be a new year with new movies, new TV shows, new entertainment obsessions. I'm so excited. It's going to be so much fun. Hope you're ready for another new year of Easily Entertained. We're going to have some fun stuff this year. I hope it'll be great. Today we are talking about probably my favorite movie musical, Tick, Tick, Boom, starring my boy, my man crush, my celebrity crush, really, Andrew Garfield. Magnificent man. This technically stage adaptation is just, it's so good. So I really want to talk about it. So let's get going. So Tick, Tick, Boom is the story of Jonathan Larson, played by Andrew Garfield, my man crush, at least mostly. The movie is pretty much biographical, and a lot of research was done to bring it even closer to real life than the original musical was. The original musical was one performed by Jonathan Larson, was usually him by himself or with a few other people, and it was just kind of like a semi-biographical monologue type story almost. But to bring it closer to real life, they did some research for the film adaptation, and they address it at the very beginning of this movie. Everything in the story is true, except for the parts that Jonathan made up. So while I say this is the story of Jonathan Larson, for the most part it is, but probably some names were changed, some aspects aren't exactly all lined up. Plus it's a musical, so not everything's going to be the same. Everything is like super realistic, but overall story is probably pretty close. So take it with a grain of salt that I say true story. Anyways, the story is of Jonathan Larson working on his musical Superbia in like the 80s and 90s. The year this one takes place is specifically 1990, but he had worked on the musical for a while. Anyways, he doesn't really feel successful about it and about his career in musical theater, believing that he should be successful by 30, which his birthday's in a week, so not a lot of time. I know he's on that grind mindset. He's got to get there. So throughout the film, we get a look at John's life, struggling to finish his musical, being stressed that it hasn't gotten picked up yet, balancing his personal and professional lives, and seeing his anxiety about all of it manifest on screen in just a fantastic way, of which I think a lot of people can relate with. Even if they can't relate with all of it, bits and pieces I think can be really impactful. Especially nowadays with the way the world is, it can feel like a bit of a struggle having to make it in life, knowing what you want to do, what you have to do, balancing the stresses. It's all just a very relatable scene, regardless of the time that the movie takes place. And a big factor in John's life is balancing it all. And his personal relationships, particularly between his girlfriend Susan and his best friend Michael, are the two biggest ones that we see in the story. Michael acted with John, but he decided to leave that life behind and is now working at an advertising agency, and he's making some good money, and he's getting a nice new apartment. He's not living the starving artist life, whereas Susan, who is an artist, she's a dancer, she wants to take up a dance residency gig. I can't remember exactly where, but they would have to move in order to do it, and she feels like Johnny is getting a little bit too into his work, and she's not feeling heard, she's not feeling cared about, and kind of rightfully so. John is a little bit obsessed, kind of as a result of the anxiety he has about all the things coming together in his life, and that he feels as a starving artist. Seeing those opportunities around him, though, it kind of forces him to take a look at his own life, and he starts to feel a little bit of that regret in choosing musical theater for what he wants to do. And he tries to play the game in some other areas. He tries to do a focus group for Michael, but it's not for him. And that constant turmoil is something just I feel like many artists can relate to. When he tries to even convince himself when he's working with Michael to be like, I could do it. I could do the focus group thing. Michael's like, no, that's not what your thing is. Initially, he scolds him. He's like, why are you sabotaging this? But then he's like, no, you're destined for the creative work. I was just a mediocre actor, but you are actually someone who will make it, no matter the hardships that he's going to have to commit to. And John eventually realizes this as well after everything kind of goes to shit. The workshop doesn't immediately succeed. He is told to keep writing. He's broken up with. Dude's life is kind of getting a little rough. But after a little bit of encouragement, he does realize that it is his life, and he will be happy to continue on as much as he can. He leaves Superbia behind to write Tick Tick Boom, and then would later return to a project that he had started and then stopped for a while that eventually became known as Rent, of which I said in my Wicked review that I think is a good screen adaptation as well, and some people didn't like that, and if you disagree, that's fine. Keep watching, because I still have more to talk about, okay? You shouldn't just disregard my take solely based on that. Anyways, sadly, after writing Rent, and just before the first previews on Off-Broadway of Rent, John had passed away. I believe from aortic dissection. I don't remember how it's pronounced. Something. It was something with his heart, and he died. It was kind of sad. He didn't even get to see his own success. But that left behind his legacy and success for the future to partake in, but sadly not for him.
I can't keep wasting my time, Mike. I turned 30 in 2 days. And I'm running out of time.
So a major theme of this movie is the journey of the creative process and the toll that it can take on somebody. Obviously, John is writing a musical and he has to finish it in time for his workshop, adding to the stress of also needing to be successful by the time he's 30. So he has a deadline on that. He has a deadline on the actual workshop. And by those around him, for like Susan and Michael, they're like, yo, you got to get your shit together, man. It just adds a lot, and it's a lot of anxiety. But he just can't finish it, no matter how hard he tries. He needs one song left, but he definitely struggles. And throughout the movie, one thing that I just love that the show does is, with the creative process, is that John wants to finish his musical. It's not that he doesn't want to finish it, he's just struggling. He constantly has other creative ideas running through his mind. He is thinking about how it could affect his future, other ideas, how he could come up with other ideas to improve the current stuff that he has for his musical. Pretty much anything but finishing the musical. And holy shit, is that just so relatable. If you're a creative, you know that the closer you get to finishing a project, the more likely you are to start thinking of the next project and get sidetracked and leave the first project unfinished for so long until you have a pile of unfinished projects. And that may just be my self-diagnosed ADHD talking, where I start things and don't finish them. But I do this all the freaking time, and I feel like it's a relatable thing for artists. I have an idea, and I get started, and I'm so excited about the new idea, so I hyperfixate on it for like a short amount of time, like a week, 2 weeks. You got that little brief period, and then randomly, I have another idea. And that is the biggest problem ever, because while I think the new idea is cool, I haven't finished the first one, and so I will start to get sidetracked, and I have to do everything in my power, short of a ritualistic sacrifice, to not start the new idea yet until I finish that first one. It is so hard to do. Literally happened with the script several times. I've had several ideas for episodes that I want to do this year that I wanted to start working on, and this was the first one, and I had gotten started, but I kept thinking about the other ones, and it was an absolute nightmare because this one is first, so I had to finish it so that I could get a new episode out this year. So that whole side of the creative process is just incredibly relatable to me. And I just love that I can empathize with other creatives on it, whether it's on the screen or in real life. It's so much, okay? I'm always breaking apart, but thankfully we got it done, okay? It's obviously, you're watching it right now. Anyways, there is that side of the process, but how about how it affects John's life as a whole? Well, that can be a problem, considering how he's not only doing it to fulfill himself, but he's also doing it as a job. And as such, he kind of becomes enveloped by it, as he can't really take a break from it. He can't really separate those aspects of his life. And seeing how I want to do this, I want to do creative stuff for a living, I do understand that aspect as well. It can be hard to find a divide between the two. And this results in his personal relationships struggling. He also has to battle the cost of reality, like having to work, pay bills, eat. It just gains such a hold on John's life that it can affect his own mental state and cause that love of creativity to hit some blocks at some points, which I think manifest themselves quite excellently in this movie. And as a creative myself, showing both sides just helps me to connect with the movie quite well, and also see myself in it and not feel as crazy for when it happens to me. And I would hope for other creatives it's also the same.
Why should we try to be our best?
So as per all musical reviews, I can't not talk about the music within Tick, Tick, Boom. And I always give this disclaimer. I know virtually nothing about like how music is produced. I know one riff on the guitar. I'm not super musically inclined. I would like to be, but I just haven't taken the time to do that yet. So you can take some of these things with a grain of salt. But I can't even deny, and I'm sure most people can't deny, that they're all slaps. Every song is a banger on this soundtrack. Oh, it's so good. And they all provide a service to the story. They help move it along. And the story being that of a playwright actually making a musical makes a lot of the songs pretty integral to the story. And it makes them diegetic or part of the actual world, which I think is really fun. The characters are actually singing them, and like it's meant to actually be happening. Like obviously not in real life, but as part of the musical, the characters are aware they're singing. In fact, there are only a few moments where the songs are non-diegetic, where they don't exist in the character's actual world, but more in the minds of the characters. More specifically, Johnny. And a few of these are like Green Green Dress, Therapy, and Swimming are mostly this way. And interestingly enough, Green Green Dress was originally also diegetic and is one of like two songs that right now is not, that in the current movie is not primarily sung by characters, but originally there was a scene for Green Green Dress sung by Johnny and Susan, but it was cut from the movie. And some people feel robbed, and I slightly understand because it is so good. But upon researching it, the reason for cutting it made a lot of sense. It doesn't further the story all that much. Like it's just kind of a little bit of a break, and that can kind of hurt the pacing of the movie. So like we were sadly deprived of their very nice duet, but it's like understandable when you realize. And along that aspect as well, Susan doesn't sing otherwise until Come to Your Senses. And as a whole, once again, upon researching this, the reason they wanted to do that is because her character feels unheard throughout the entire movie. But until you get to that song, Come to Your Senses, she finally is understood by Johnny, as Johnny listens to the words and sees Susan in it. And so that makes a lot more sense why they cut it now. Anyways, overall though, every song does serve the story in some way. 3090 is very much about Johnny's stresses, about being successful and his birthday coming soon. Boho Days is them reminiscing on the life that they have. No More is about moving on to better things, and so on. They all kind of have their little themes, and so many of them serve to move the story along in some way, which I think is great. A big one that people usually talk about is Therapy, mainly because the acting is fantastic, because it's a song that's happening in Johnny's head, and their like little stage play that they're talking about this story with is with Johnny and his friend Caressa acting it out, Caressa playing Susan, and then in the real world, Johnny is fighting with Susan, and you get this interesting contrast of the music and the real fight, and it's so good. It is fantastic. But there are two others that I think I like a little bit more in serving the story. Personally, my favorite song is 3090. I just love the beat. I love the words. I think that one's great. But the two that I really like in terms of story are the last two songs in the movie, being Why and Louder Than Words. And this is mainly because they are kind of continuations of each other in terms of theme. Why is when Johnny reflects on his life as a musical theater writer. He made the vow to do this for his entire life, and he's thinking, is that the right decision? And by the end of the song, he kind of remakes that vow and is like, yes, I do think that's the right decision. And Louder Than Words kind of pushes that a little bit further in just a slightly different way. This song pushes Johnny's love for creating musical theater, knowing that this is what he wants to do, and knowing that though there's going to be a lot of hardships, he knows that this is what will make him happy. Not telling himself that he should do other things, but that this is what's going to help make him feel fulfilled in his life. He's going to feel successful just by doing this. And I think the impact that those songs have together and how they bring the whole movie to a close is just what makes them so strong for me in particular over a song like Therapy. Being a creative myself, it's just hard for me to see myself doing anything else but creative work, and it just brings me joy even if it doesn't succeed, which is okay. And that message is just spouted throughout this film, and that is something I can personally just really empathize with, and that's what makes it probably my favorite movie musical. So now let's talk about our rating. If you haven't heard our easily entertained rating scale, from least to best, it goes garbage, once is fine, right mood, quotable, go to, and all day, every day. And it's gonna come as no surprise after this video that Tick Tick Boom is an all day, every day for me. The story, the themes, the music, the personal connection, the acting, it just all works for me, and I could watch it. In fact, I have watched it every day before, and it's one that I just can't get sick of. So that makes it an all day, every day for me, of course. If you would put Tick Tick Boom in a different rating, comment down below. Let me know your thoughts. But that is it for this episode of Easily Entertained. I hope you enjoyed. If you did, give us a like and a subscribe so you can be notified of all new episodes when they come out every Tuesday. It's going to be a great year for some reviews, I hope, anyway. Hopefully we have some good stuff on the way. I guess you're going to have to subscribe and stay tuned to find out. It's always a good time. But if you have any suggestions on some movies, TV, video games, books, anything that you would like to hear on this show, comment down below. Maybe we'll reach them this year. It'll be great. But until next time, bye.